Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Client Builder for Financial Advisors. I'm thrilled to kick this off because what we're about to explore isn't just another sales tactic. It's a complete transformation in the way you think about selling. In the opening chapters of Client Builder book, we dive deep into 12 powerful principles that cut through every barrier in traditional selling, utilizing modern psychology, the science of behavioral economics, and the timeless wisdom of experts like Robert Cialdini, Daniel Kahneman, and dozens of sales trainers. That's exactly what we're doing here, condensing every proven sales technique ever used into one cohesive step-by-step process. I've seen it work in my own practice. People with zero sales or financial planning experience turning it into top producers who perform at the level of someone who's been in the business for 35 or 40 years under their belt. These principles aren't about gimmicks or quick fixes. They're about shifting your mindset, building genuine trust, and engaging clients in a way that feels natural, authentic, and incredibly effective. This podcast is designed to give you the tools to master the art of sales. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take your career to the next level, the strategies we discuss here will help you build a meaningful relationship and drive long-term success. So, if you're ready to rethink what you know about selling, join me as we unpack these 12 transformative principles and set you on the path to becoming an absolute master of sales. Welcome to Client Builder for Financial Advisor. It's going to be a game changer. I'm glad you're here, and I want to welcome Larry Lewis, the master himself. Larry, it's been a long time. We've been thinking about doing this for a long time.
We sure have.
So happy to have you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be fun.
Yes. And, you know, I can remember the first day that I called you because I was frustrated. I had just gotten done with a sales call, and I had no idea where I stood. I was tired of doing all this marketing with seminars and radio and bringing people into my conference room and completely losing my way in the conference room, not knowing what direction to go, what moves somebody, how to find pain. I knew none of it. I was just literally trying to read what someone had given me, what I consider now the transactional script.
Right.
You know, I'm sure this is a concern of yours, Mr. Smith, right?
The old-fashioned tie-down question. And I remember that, Brian. I mean, you had a lot of what we call pain.
Yes, I had a tremendous amount of pain.
Very short phone conversation. And, you know, before we even had virtual selling, I think, you know, you became a client in about 45 minutes worth of conversation.
Yeah, probably less than that.
And not only did it spawn a wonderful client relationship, but we've become good friends over the last decade as well.
And we've seen so many people's lives change.
Really have.
Through your Client Builder program. And when I started learning it, I was blessed because I would go to your house every Friday. It reminded me of, like, you know, hiring a tutor when I was a kid to learn, you know, improve my math skills. And I would sit at your kitchen table with you every Friday, and we would go through every aspect of the process. And
not everybody got the kitchen table
no, they didn't.
In my business. You know, I mean, I did have an office with a training center, but no, for you, Brian, it was the kitchen table. It made it that much more personal.
Yeah, and it was absolutely life-changing. And the great thing is, we'll talk about this in the episodes to come, but not only was were you teaching me, but at the same time, I was teaching you about something you never knew.
Yeah.
And the crazy part about it is, I became a client of yours, but within a year, you became a client of mine because I was sharing with you what we did, and you're going, wait a second.
Yeah.
This exists out there?
I mean, I had my own set of circumstances. I'd recently gone through a divorce, And, my financial world was turned upside down, right?
Right.
And I'd worked with a lot of what I call traditional advisors.
Yep.
And as we would role play, and you would talk about things I'd never heard of. You talked about fixed index annuities, and I'd have to go back and say, what the heck's that? That sounds too good to be true.
Right.
And I don't know what it was, but I think it was maybe 9, 10 months into the relationship. I said, hey, can we shift gears here? Can I talk to you a little bit about my retirement plan?
Yes.
And and so I've been a loyal, happy client for the last 8 years, I think.
And a lot of the things that I would bring up as we started getting at a point, you would say, Brian, time out. These are a lot of the pain issues that I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you and I started talking about it. But when you read your book, which by the way, you got to get a copy of Larry's book, Client Builder, because it, in my opinion, is one of the best reads ever when it comes to sales training. And I always tell them it should be on the New York Times bestseller list. It is the best sales book to this date that I have ever read. So if you don't have a copy of it, go to Amazon, get a copy of it. But one of the things that you talk about in the opening chapter of the book Client Builder Selling, you talk about overcoming the stereotype and changing the paradigm. So let's start there. What is the stereotype you believe still haunts the financial advisor world today?
Well, you did something that was stereotypical sales when you talked about a tie-down question. It's one of those things that we ask a question that we already know the answer to, and we say something to the effect of, well, I'm sure you'd love to save taxes in retirement, don't you?
Right.
Well, it's so obvious and it's so transparent, and it's perceived as pushy. And that's the kind of sales training that we saw, back in the 60s and the 70s, even the 80s. Frankly, it hasn't died yet, and it's unfortunate because the nature of selling has changed significantly since we have the internet.
Mhm.
And what's happened is there are basically two, some will say three selling paths, but there's a transactional sale, which really only works if you're selling the Ginzu steak knives or, your,
Right.
I mean, the people that still use that are the ones that are going to sell you the
Cleaning solution.
cleaning solution,
yeah.
or the people that want to sell you some form of home remodeling,
Right.
new windows or gutter replacements and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And it's very presentation oriented. It always ends with a close, and there's always some, if you make that decision today, you're going to get a great discount, and you don't. It just rubs people the wrong way. I mean, it makes them feel like they're talking to a used car salesman. And if you think about how
Which is not what you want when you're dealing with people's finances.
absolutely not. I
Right.
mean, so you need to be much more consultative. Now, think about how financial advisors have been portrayed in the media. I mean, if we go back and we look at Gordon Gekko, wasn't that
Yeah. The Wolf of Wall Street.
the Wolf of Wall Street?
Yeah. The Boiler Room.
Boiler Room.
Yep.
They're always portrayed as either sharks
Yep.
or just feckless idiots. Like if you ever saw Fargo, the insurance guy in
Yeah.
Fargo, just a bumbling fool.
Yes.
And obviously we don't want to be either one of those, And so what took hold after the internet came on the scene is in order to sell financial services, you had to be far more consultative. A lot of people like to give lip service to that word, but what we do is we flip the sales process on its end.
Mhm.
So instead of you trying to sell a prospect to become your client, we want the client essentially selling you on why they need your help. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to grasp, but that's the paradigm shift that we're talking about here.
That brings me back to a mentor that I had many, many, many years ago, and he had said to me, now he didn't articulate it in the way that you're articulating it, but he said the difference between the mediocre producer and the great producer is the great producer realizes that his job is to disqualify those people very quickly.
Wow.
And by disqualifying them very quickly, you're going to ask a series of open-ended questions,
Yeah.
right? To see, are they even a fit for what we do? So
That's actually one of my principles, Brian.
yeah,
Selling is a process of
is
disqualification. Because
disqualification.
the goal is to get rid of the numbers game. You know, if you think about the old school approach to selling, it was really, you know, submit as many proposals as you possibly
Right,
can.
right. See what
I
sticks.
call it the spaghetti approach
Yeah,
to selling. If you remember back in the day, the way you determine whether the spaghetti was done is you throw a couple strands against the wall to see if they stick.
yeah.
Well, that was kind of the idea. And that's the way a lot of sales managers and sales organizations saw it. You know, well, if we got X amount of sales with 6 sales calls a day, let's just up it to 8.
Right.
Why not 10?
Right.
And it became a pure numbers game, which is really, well, as you experienced doing it that way for a number of years, it was really a one-way ticket to burnout.
Okay, well, so let me tell you the first sales call that I ever made that I was taught, and here's how it went.
Okay.
Hey, Bob, this is Brian Quaranta from Sun America Securities. Have you ever heard of Sun America Securities before? And of course, they would say no.
No, I don't think so.
And I'd say, well, we're an independent firm that specializes in helping people manage their mutual funds, their stocks, and their bonds. Are you doing any investing these days?
Yes.
Well, let me ask, if I were to come up with any ideas that could help you improve what you're currently doing, maximize your returns, reduce your risk, would you want me to give you a call in the future and let me know what I found for you?
No.
This was our script,
Yeah.
right? But would those be examples of tie downs?
That's a tie-down question.
Those are tie down questions.
You know, and the idea was, and you would actually come up with even more obvious questions you would ask, such as like, well, I'm sure you'd like to score big in the stock market, wouldn't you?
Right.
Which, how can you say no to that?
Correct.
You know, but it's so readily transparent and pushy. And I think the philosophy was that if we can ask 5 or 6 clear yes questions when it comes down to getting this person to decide whether they want to work with you, they can't change the shape of their mouth from a yes to a no. I mean, it just was so old school. And would it work sometimes? Yeah.
Sure it would.
Give you an example. I had a guy come into my home one time. This was many years ago, when we were looking at replacing our front window. It was a bay window in the house. And he came in, and it started off pretty good. You know, he sat himself down in my living room, and he's asking me a whole bunch of questions and asking me why we want to replace the window. And, you know, my wife was there, and she's chiming in. You know, she wants it to look this way and that kind of thing. And I noticed that the whole time he's talking to me, he's taking notes on 2 tablets. One on this leg and one on this leg. And so I'm curious. I said, I noticed that you're taking notes, which is great, but you're also writing on a second tablet. What's that all about? And he goes, oh, Larry, I'm so glad you asked. We have a special promotion. And he's filling out the form for the special promotion.
Right.
And I said, what's the special promotion? Well, if we can use your testimonial in one of our upcoming ads, we can give you a 25% discount. And I said, let me guess. I've got to make a decision before you leave. Well, yes, but I'm sure you'd want to take advantage of the 25% discount, wouldn't you?
I can feel my blood boiling right now with uncomfortableness just hearing that.
Well, this is when he discovered what I do. I
Yeah.
told him that I had
Yeah.
a sales training
Right.
business. And I looked at him with all sincerity. I said, does that stuff really work today?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, well, not in your neighborhood. I said, what neighborhoods does it work in?
Mm-hmm.
And in essence, he basically said neighborhoods that are filled with poor people and old people. In other words, the vulnerable.
The vulnerable.
Yeah, and so
The people that can't say no.
people that can't say no.
Yeah.
And of course, what did they do? They put laws in place so that you have 3 days to rescind the contract that you signed when this guy sat in your living room and wouldn't leave. And let's face it, Brian, you remember the days when insurance was sold that way.
Of course. Yes.
I mean, I had an early mentor who said to me, he said, you plant your seat in their living room, you ask for a cup of coffee, and you don't leave until they sign the contract.
They taught us, you either get the deal or get kicked out of the house. We had one guy that was at a house for 8 hours. He got the deal, by the way, but they canceled the next day.
Oh my God.
So what was it? I mean, where was it and why was it that they came up with this idea that if you got, let's say, 5 or 6 yeses in a row, that increased your probability of them saying yes to the deal?
You know, I don't really know, because anytime you're pushing somebody for a yes,
Mm-hmm.
it creates something that psychologists call reactance.
Mm-hmm.
And that reactance is something that I'm sure we'll go into great depth with at some time, but it's that little voice inside all of our heads that appears sometime around the time of when you're 2 years old, and I'm
Mhm.
sure you've been through that with your sons,
Yes. Yes.
where they feel like they're being controlled. You know,
Yes.
little kids being told when to go to bed, when to get up. Heck, we put them to bed in a cage.
Mhm.
We call it a crib, but it's a cage.
Right.
You know, they're told what to eat, and they start to get frustrated.
Mhm.
You know, they live in this land of giants that are making all these decisions for them, and they finally decide, I can say no.
Mhm.
And so the minute people feel like they're being controlled or told what to think, told what to do, including signing a contract, or
Yep.
they push back.
That's the natural reaction.
That's the natural reaction. So I don't know how they came up with that, because it's really contrary to human psychology. It flat out doesn't work.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: how does that image affect how prospects see advisors? I mean, when you're utilizing that type of strategy, how is that affecting the image?
They immediately come in with their guard up. You know,
The guard's up
when
immediately.
they sit down with a financial advisor, in their head, they have that stereotype of, this guy's going to be a shark.
Mhm.
This guy's going to be the Wolf of Wall Street, or this guy's going to be the closer in Boiler Room.
Mhm.
So I need to protect myself. So how do they protect themselves? Frankly, they don't tell the truth.
Okay.
They hold back.
Yep.
They will oftentimes mislead you.
Mhm.
And they'll do this in a whole variety of ways. They'll do it by telling you that they don't have any concerns or they don't have any issues related to their retirement, when in fact they do. I mean,
Right.
they wouldn't have sat down and scheduled the appointment with you
Mhm.
if they didn't have concerns.
Mhm.
They're not there just to waste your time. Or what they'll do is, maybe they really do want help,
Mhm.
okay? And they'll lead you to believe that they want help, but all they want is free information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
They're really a do-it-yourselfer at heart, and they're hoping that they can bait you into giving them a presentation that they can either take back and implement on their own,
Mhm.
or they can take that to their existing advisor and say, hey, I was talking to this guy the other day, and he suggested that you should do a Roth conversion if you have X amount of money, or if you have RMDs that are slated to be higher than what you expected them to be.
So now they're out there, they're seeking different information. They're coming back to you, questioning you on it, because they've never really gained the trust of you, right?
Right.
So let's give the audience something that would put a prospect at ease, just right at the very beginning. Like, let's say, opening up the
Okay.
presentation. What would be something that would make
So
the guard come down?
let's talk about something that we were all taught to do.
Okay.
We were all taught to open a sales call with small talk.
That's right. Is this your son here on the window?
Yeah.
I was taught that when you walk into a house, look for the pictures.
Exactly.
Right? Look for the family vacation pictures. Look for the dad in the military uniform. Look for something you could find common ground with. A magazine. There's a fishing magazine. Oh, Bob, you like fishing? How long you been fishing for? That was a small talk that I was taught.
Yeah, here's the crazy part of that. Only half the population enjoys small talk. Now, as you know, because you've gone
By the
through
way,
the
I
training,
hate small talk.
that's because your disc profile is
Yeah.
that of a high D,
Right.
as is mine. I see that as a little bit of pandering. In fact, I see that as a time waster.
Yes.
Let's get right down to business.
Right.
You do that with a high C individual, what I call the conscientious individual.
Yeah.
The minute you start making small talk, they start to think, oh, here it is, stereotypical sales guy. Okay, when's the pitch coming?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that we do. We think we're breaking the ice when, in fact, we're actually shooting ourselves in the foot. Now, here's the other thing. They expect that you're going to walk in on a sales call, the advisor, and you're going to try and close them. One of the things we teach the people in our program is you should open up with what I call an advance agreement.
Okay.
First thing you do is make sure you and your prospect are clear on how much time you're going to spend.
Time.
Interesting. Now, you do that for two reasons. One is most prospects are afraid that at the very least this salesperson's going to waste their time. So if we can put a hard parameter on that.
That's kind of like the guy that I was just walking through the airport, right? And the guys that are trying to sell the credit cards. Excuse me, sir, you got a gold card? Come on over here. Let me tell you a little bit about it. You know the first thing that I think? How long is this guy going to keep me? Because I got to catch a flight.
Exactly. So one of the things we want to establish up front is how much time do you have allocated for this meeting? Okay. You want to give control, or at least the perception of control, to your prospect by saying, you scheduled this appointment for a reason. Okay. What do you want to get out of the hour that we're going to spend together? What questions do you have? So we give them the control over the agenda.
Right.
Okay. And then the next thing we do, which is very counterintuitive, but prospects love it, we tell them up front that if we don't think we can help them, or if we don't think we're a good fit, we're going to let them know. We're going to tell them they're not a good fit. And we ask them, can you do the same for me? If for any reason you don't think you want to work with us or even take the next step, just tell us that. So we end this thing and no longer waste your time.
So basically, no is perfectly okay.
Exactly.
And by telling somebody that no is perfectly okay, psychologically, something's got to be happening.
So it does two things, which is interesting. It causes them to lower their guard. Okay, because they don't feel like you're going to pressure them into doing something they don't want to do. It actually makes them draw closer to you. They actually, it's the same concept between a young lady who plays hard to get. And I first heard about this concept in a book that was really popular back in the 70s. It was written by a guy named Robert Ringer. It was called Winning Through Intimidation. Now, I hate the title.
Make sure you write that one down, by the way, folks. Larry is an absolute encyclopedia with books. Say that one more time.
It's called Winning Through Intimidation.
We'll make sure
I'm not even sure it's
make sure we put this one into the notes. Okay, go ahead.
But it's he referred to it as boy-girl theory.
Okay.
And it was this whole idea that was pioneered by Cialdini around the principle of scarcity. That anytime you make something more scarce, it makes people want it more. In other words, everybody wants what they can't have. So if we tell somebody up front that it's okay to say no, and if we don't think we can help you, we're going to tell you no as well, they actually think to themselves, wow, he doesn't really need me. He doesn't really want me. And we do. But we only want clients if they're a good fit, if they have the problems that we can help solve.
Yep.
And by saying that up front, it actually draws that prospect closer. They actually become more open and desire working with you more than they otherwise would.
And I will say, from everything that I learned from you, one thing that I hated prior to working with you is a financial advisor has the ability to go in any direction they want, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the grandkids need 529 plans, or the dad needs to start a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA,
Mm-hmm.
or they want the mom to start having an IRA account, or whatever it is, they need insurance. As a financial advisor, you have all these tools. But the real question that you have to ask yourself as a financial advisor is, who are you as a financial advisor, and what problem are you trying to solve? Because you can't be all things to all people,
No, exactly. And you don't want to be.
and you don't want to be.
No, because and you bring out a good point. The whole purpose, and we'll get into the process in more depth in future sessions, but the whole goal of your presentation is to tailor it specifically to their pain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We see a lot of advisors out there that basically they're looking for the magic bullet. They're looking
Mhm.
for a script that they can memorize and recite when it comes time to make a presentation.
I know of a company that does this.
Yes.
They literally will, their presentation will start off like this. You probably could tell from my presentation that I believe in safe money, right? And so I'm assuming that the reason why you scheduled an appointment with me is because you believe in safe money too, right? First tie down. Right?
Wow.
First tie
Yeah.
down. And then they say, now, as we go through your situation today, do you want me to look at just one particular account, or do you want me to look at everything? And they'll go, so again, a choice, right?
Yeah.
No, I want you to look at just one particular account. Okay, which account is it that you want me to look at? This one. And there begins the cycle right there. And everything is either a choice or a yes or a no. And I know a company that does that. And literally, they train these advisors on that script. And
You're very polished in doing it. I mean, obviously, you did it for a part of your career.
Yeah.
But my gut tells me that you probably won some business that way, but it was
small business.
Exactly.
You would never be able to be a real wealth manager to those people because they see you as only being able to fix one problem.
And that problem was probably an annuity.
Yes, it was.
And it was what you were using is what we would refer to as a transactional sales process.
Yes.
When what you want to become is a trusted advisor to that individual.
Yep.
And you don't just want to sell them an annuity.
No.
You want to work with them for the next 25 years. And an annuity might be a good product to have in their portfolio.
Right.
But you maybe want to manage their assets under management as well.
Yes.
And one size does not fit all.
Correct.
And the problem with transactional selling is that it comes across as nothing more than a pitch, a one-size-fits-all pitch.
Yes.
And you can't sell, you don't sell financial products.
Right.
Now, there are advisors out there, that's all they do.
Yes.
Is they just sell financial products.
Yes.
They have 2 or 3 annuities they love, and they just go out there and they sell that.
Yep.
Those guys are the ones that get in trouble.
And those guys are actually violating their fiduciary responsibility.
Exactly.
They're violating their fiduciary responsibility. By the way, for those of you that don't understand the fiduciary responsibility, it's doing what's in the best interest of the client, which means looking at all areas of their financial situation.
Exactly.
But if you're taught a transactional process, it's very difficult to act as a fiduciary.
Yeah, it's a one-size-fits-all approach. You're just trying to sell a financial product.
That's right.
Whether it works for them or not.
Yes.
Okay. And what we have to have is a more consultative approach. And as you know, with the financial advisors I work with, I tell them, you don't sell a management portfolio. You don't sell annuities. You sell guidance. You sell planning.
That's right.
And those products out there, they can be purchased from anybody. In fact, it's kind of crazy to see how that side of the industry is being commoditized today. But, in the same way that we see websites that will sell you term insurance at the absolute lowest price by taking a salesman out of it and just, basically it's a website selling it to you. they're starting to sell annuities that way.
So let me ask. I mean, there's no doubt competition is fierce right now. In your opinion, what are the most successful advisors doing differently right now?
I think today, the way you differentiate yourself has more to do with how you sell than what you sell.
Mm.
I'll give you an example. I got a call from a colleague of yours, somebody that's in my program. It's the second time through.
Hmm.
He's got a successful firm. It's in Minneapolis, and he's put the two advisors that work for him through the same training. He called me up, and he was excited. He said, had a great day, closed two really nice cases today. He says, and I knew I was going to get them. He says, how did you know you were going to get them? He said, because after the first appointment, here's what they said to me. They said, this was really refreshing. You weren't salesy at all.
Yeah.
So what happened is, instead of looking like a salesperson,
Right.
he looks like this trusted advisor.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, they chose to work with him because they felt like he had their best interest at heart.
Hmm.
And he took them through, the sales process, which I teach, the sales process you use. And they were really happy with the solutions that he provided because it was a collaborative process. He did a great job in that first meeting of diagnosing their pain and finding out the impact it was having on them today, as well as the impact it would have on them in the future if they didn't make changes. So they left there feeling hopeful that this person could give them the kind of retirement they had dreamed of in the future. And of course, that's the plan that he mapped out for them in his recommendation or presentation meeting.
And I've always said the great thing that you teach in Client Builder is you really teach the idea of what it means to be almost like a financial therapist, right? You're really when someone is sharing something with you, there's more behind what they're sharing.
Yes.
So if they're saying, well, we're really not too happy with our current advisor.
Yeah.
Well, most advisors are going to brush right over that and go, oh, wow, they're not happy with their current advisor.
Right.
You can't stop there.
No.
When they say they're not happy with their current advisor, what you taught me is something where we would say, your current advisor, you're not happy with? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and you would drill down.
And you would drill down.
Now, what you're alluding to, Brian, is the fact that people don't make a change until they have pain.
Mm-hmm.
When they have a problem with their existing advisor,
that's not pain yet.
It's not pain.
Right.
It's an indication that there's pain.
Right.
But the thing we have to remember is that all of us have lots of problems. I had a problem this morning. Couldn't find my glasses.
Yeah.
Okay. Wasn't earth-shattering.
Right.
But my point here is that in the course of our day, all of us are wrestling with lots of little problems.
Mm-hmm.
How do those problems become something that they feel like they need to stop and fix? And the challenge you've got in your world with selling retirement planning is that they have concerns today, but those concerns aren't really going to manifest for 10, 15, 20 years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the fear of running out of money, okay, or the fear of becoming dependent on your children.
Great point. That's so far down the road, it's hard to connect any pain to that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so what happens is we hear the problem, but it doesn't really register with people.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to get them to stop and think about it. Now, psychologists refer to this as the focusing illusion.
Okay.
The more time somebody spends thinking and talking about a problem, the more space that problem takes up in their brain.
Mm.
The more space that problem takes in their brain, it turns into pain. And the crazy part of it is that people, some will argue against this, but the fact is people make buying decisions emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
They only they only justify that decision rationally,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And so what we've got to do is we've got to get people to tap in to the problems we're uncovering in an emotional way to where those problems rise to where it's something compelling enough
Mm-hmm.
that they want to fix,
Right,
okay?
right, right.
And there's skill to that. And a lot of it just involves great listening techniques, but the one you're referring to is something I call the diagnostic drill, which is taking this little campfire of a problem, turning it into a bonfire of pain so they feel some urgency to go out and solve that problem with your help,
Yes,
okay?
yeah.
And the thing that's interesting is I had always heard that from mentors and pundits for years,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't really understand the psychology behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And what's amazing is over the last couple of decades, we have an entire field of science dedicated to this, and it's called behavioral economics.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the people that was a pioneer in that area was a guy by the name Daniel Kahneman.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that proved scientifically that people make buying decisions emotionally and that pain, negative emotions, are 2 to 3 times more likely to cause someone to take action than a positive emotion. In
So
other
the
words,
fear of loss, right? The fear of loss. And I will tell you, folks,
the fear of loss is more powerful than the fear than the hope for gain.
yeah. So
Okay,
so so if I could make you 30%, or I could prevent you from losing 50%, losing 50% is more motivating than you potentially gaining 30%.
exactly.
And folks, I want to leave you with this as we close down this episode here. But one of the best techniques that Larry taught me was something called parroting back. Remember parroting?
Sure.
And an easy way to think about this is if somebody says, well, I'm really not happy with the overall performance of my current investments. And all you have to do is say, you're not you're not happy with the current performance of
Right.
your investments.
Yep.
That's all you have to say. You're not happy with the current performance of your investments, and that will open up a whole new can of worms just by repeating those last three words.
Yeah.
Larry calls this parroting, right?
Well, the official term for
I
it
called it always parroting.
is active listening.
Active listening, right?
Okay,
Yep.
or yeah, I think somebody else has another name for it,
Yep.
but it really works. It what it does is it tells that person, oh, he's paying attention.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and if he's paying attention, believe it or not, we actually get a little dopamine shot
That he's listening.
that he's listening.
Yes.
Which makes them want to open up even more.
Yeah.
And so the more we get them to talk, the more likely they are to buy.
Well, folks, thank you so much for joining me on this episode with Larry Lewis of Client Builder for Financial Advisors. I hope you found some real gems. I know I always do every time I talk to him. And, every time we have a conversation, I'm always empowered to elevate my sales game. And remember, every insight we share is another step toward turning your practice into an absolute powerhouse. If you would have asked me just 6 to 7 years ago, if I would have taken my business from 30 million to 200 million, I would have never believed you. But when you get around somebody that knows what they're doing with the level of experience that Larry has, teaching this for 40 plus years, this is the type of results that you get. And I've seen him do it over and over and over again with people with experience and people with no experience. So before we sign off, I want you to carry this thought. Mastering sales isn't about gimmicks. It's about building authentic relationships and leveraging timeless strategies from the likes of Cialdini, Zig Ziglar, Randy Swanson, Dale Carnegie, and many, many more. And each episode that Larry and I do, we're going to peel back another layer of these principles, providing you with actionable tools that you can transform your practice and your mindset. So if you're ready to unlock even more strategies that can redefine your success in the financial advisory world. Be sure to tune in next time. We're just getting started, and the best is yet to come. Until then, keep pushing forward, keep building those relationships, and remember, you're on your way to becoming a master of sales. See you in the next episode, and don't forget to get a copy of the Client Builder book. You can go right to Amazon and do that, and I would highly recommend you read it from cover to cover. We'll see you on the next episode.